This meeting is being recorded.
All right, so let's talk about accountability and accelerating accountability. So, big picture wise, where we are on this model is this is the practical wisdom model, which I call the phronesis model. So, phronesis means practical wisdom in ancient Greek. And I'm not going to go through the entire model. Some of you have seen it before, but I'm just going to highlight where we are. So, in the center is the outcome that that everybody wants, which is unshakable business endurance. And especially in turbulent times, you want that endurance to be able to plow through it. And then around in the yellow portion are the three outcomes that lead to unshakable business endurance. So unbreakable or unbeatable positioning, an unstoppable workforce, and unwavering inspiration. In blue, what you see are the three principles: discipline, foresight, empowering oversight, and courageous insight. And then around the edges are the various habits that I work with people to help them strengthen. And the habit that we are focused on now is relentless improvement. So accountability is all about relentless improvement. Last month we discussed enthusiastic engagement, and the month before that was compelling clarity. So this month is relentless improvement. And so we're just going to dive right in. When it comes to accountability, there are three C's. So think of accountability in terms of three C's. And the first C is compelling clarity. People need to know exactly what they're being held accountable for in order to actually have accountability. So they need to know exactly what your expectations and standards are. Second is common sense consistency. So people need to know that you have judgment, because there are some, first of all, the standards to apply to everybody equally, and they have to apply consistently over time. Now, of course, there's always common sense involved here. So there are extenuating circumstances in some times when people, when people require some discretion. So if you're late because of there was a massive 100 car pileup on the interstate, then common sense consistency prevails. And then finally is empowering caring. People need to know that you genuinely want what is best for them, that you want them to be successful. So that's empowering caring. It's not coddling somebody doing their jobs for them. It's empowering them to continue to get better, and then knowing that you have a genuine interest in their well-being and their being ever better employees. So we can look at what happens when one of these elements is missing. And I've labeled the intersections 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if people are clear about the standards and they believe that you are enforcing them consistently, but they don't believe that you care about them. So you're at intersection number 1. You're missing empowering caring. And in that case, the behavioral indicators of empowering caring being missing are that people will say they're being targeted, that you hate them, that you want to get rid of them, etc. So they're going to feel like all of this accountability practices, the feedback that you give them, for example, is all because that you hate them or want to get rid of them. So that their behavior is they're going to say they feel like they're being targeted. If you're in intersection number 2, where you have compelling clarity and people believe that you want what's best for them, but there's no common sense consistency. So maybe it's do as I say, not as I do. Maybe some people are exempt from the standards while it's enforced on others. And in that case, number 2, people are going to feel that the rules are arbitrary, that they're not really serious because they don't apply to everybody all the time. And if it's a do as I say, not as I do situation, then people are going to believe that you are a hypocrite. If you're in intersection number 3, where there's common sense consistency and there's powering and caring, but there's no clarity about the standards, then naturally people are going to be confused. They're going to say that you're moving the goalposts, that they don't understand exactly what you want. So the happy place, of course, is in number 4. And in number 4 is where you have productive accountability. And when you have productive accountability, you're going to see some interesting things. So first of all, people are going to rise to the occasion. They're going to meet your expectations. I have found in 35 plus years of leading organizations that when somebody didn't meet my expectations, 95% of the time the fault was mine because I didn't make my expectations clear. So when you've got all 3 working together, people are going to rise to the occasion. They are going to continuously improve because you are going to make accountability feel like support. So they're going to get better every day. And number 3, they are going to take ownership of those standards and enforce them of their own volition. So instead of you having to apply the carrots and sticks all the time, they're going to do that of their own volition. So a couple of tools that you can use to strengthen each circle. When it comes to compelling clarity, use a different color here. When it comes to compelling clarity, the format that you want to use to set your standards and expectations is X so that Y. And if time is important, by when. So the X is what you want them to do. The X is the standard, the expectation. So that is a prompt for you to describe the Y. And the Y are the results, benefits, outcomes of doing X. So, and if we can't provide a compelling Y, then X is probably not worth doing. So X so that Y, and then if there's a time component, by when. And if you use that format to set your expectations, to provide guidance, then you're gonna have the compelling clarity that people need to be successful. When it comes to common sense consistency, the key is just simply the rules apply to everybody. And you are going to be the one that models that behavior. So I often take organizations to battlefields for offsites. So Antietam, Gettysburg, other ones. And in Civil War battlefields, you often see leaders on horseback. And the reason why leaders are on horseback is not because they were lazy or privileged. In some cases, it was they were up higher, so they could see a bit better. They're 6 feet higher off the ground. That gives you an advantage. Most importantly, it was because they could be seen by their own people. Because if you have 1,000 people on foot and one person on horseback, if you're the enemy, who are you shooting at? You're always going to shoot at the person on horseback. And so the message is, I'm the most vulnerable person on this battlefield. Everybody is shooting at me, And if I can do my job while everybody's shooting at me, so can everybody else. In ancient warfare, the leader always positioned themselves on the front right. And the reason for that was very similar. In a shield wall, you held your shield with your left arm. And actually, I'll just go to, it'd be easier to see. You held your shield in your left arm and your sword or spear in the right. And so in the shield wall where everybody's mashed up together, your shield is protecting half of your body and then half of the body to the person on your left. The only person with half their body exposed in this entire formation is the person on the front right. And so that's why the leader always positioned themselves there. I'm the most vulnerable person. I can do my job despite being at greater risk than everybody else. So can everybody. And so um, that is consistency. That is modeling the standards, exemplifying the standards. And that's what people want. In terms of empowering caring, uh, people need to know that you want what's best for them. And one of the best ways to do that is doing one-on-ones with each of your direct reports. And we should be able to sit down with each of our direct reports at least once a week for 15 minutes and just simply discuss what are the priorities for the week to make sure that you're both on the same page. How are they using their strengths? What does ideal support from you look like? So those just basic questions for your weekly one-on-ones are going to significantly increase the performance of each of your direct reports in your business units. And then you do a similar approach every 90 days, where you take a longer term view um, and you discuss more of their career aspirations and their growth. So as a part of this masterclass, I'll give you the formats that I use for both of those one-on-ones, and I think you'll find them to be transformational. Okay, so those are the principles behind accountability, the three C's, if you will: compelling clarity, common sense, consistency, and empowering caring. Okay, so one of the biggest challenges with accountability is we tend to only focus on the extremes. So when you look at this bell curve, if you will, and you just imagine, use a different color, you just imagine a double axis chart where this was frequency of of action, and this is performance. What you tend to see is uh, a few examples of horrible performance on the far left side of the screen. So here, and a few examples of heroic performance on the far right. And yet the approach that many leaders take to accountability is the use of carrots and sticks. And you only have so many carrots and sticks in the arsenal. And so you apply the swift sticks um, to the address the horrible performance. You apply the compelling carrots, the awards, etc., to the heroic performance. But the majority of actions within an organization simply remain unaddressed. And so we're missing about 90%. So if this is maybe 2.5 to 5% of behavior, and this is 2.5 to 5% of behavior. This here is 90 to 95% of the behaviors in your organization. And if we only take a carrots and sticks approach, then we're missing 90, 95% of the opportunities to improve future performance, which after all is what accountability is all about. It's about shaping behavior and improving future performance. And so there are two myths that keep people trapped in a carrots and sticks mentality. The first myth on the left-hand side is that um, feedback is creating resistance. And so it's awkward, it's unpleasant, and you avoid it because of that awkwardness and unpleasantness. So what tends to happen is we'll let the behavior that's maybe just below standard to slide. And the challenge with that approach, of course, is that over time, that substandard behavior becomes a habit. And habits are very, very hard to break. If you look at what you might call a futures model, where if you're here today, um, bad habits lead to drift, and ultimately that's going to create, over time, going to create performance down here. And if what we really want is performance up here, then nipping the problem in the bud when it happens is far easier than trying to do the heavy lift when something becomes a bad habit. So the myth that this is just too hard, it's too painful, it's too awkward, it's creating antibodies is preventing us from addressing that subpar performance. And so later, we'll give you some tools to be able to do that more effectively. So it takes all the awkwardness out of it. The second myth is on the other side, and that myth is that you shouldn't reward people for doing their jobs. So they're just doing their jobs, and you shouldn't reward people for that. And there could be some truth to that. I mean, certainly you can't give monetary awards every time somebody meets the standard. That's not the point. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't acknowledge and appreciate the fact that they're meeting the standard. So the myth is that we can't do anything or we'll cheapen all of the awards that we have for heroic performance. But there are ways to address to standard and above standard performance that reinforces it, because the truth here is that we can affect this line and this line only. Not really going to affect the red line. If somebody's going to do horrible performance, it may be they just are not the right fit for the organization. And the heroic performance oftentimes is a result of circumstances that may be outside of your control. And you certainly want to address both ends of the spectrum. The line that you have the most influence over is this light green line. And so by addressing the subpar performance in the right way, and acknowledging and appreciating the to standard and above standard performance in the right way, essentially what we're able to do is move this line, and we want to move this line essentially in this direction so that the subpar performance keeps getting less and less, and the light green performance, gets more and more. So that's ultimately the effect that we want with accountability, is we're improving future performance such that everybody is either meeting the standards or doing things above the standard. They're actually doing better. And the examples of performance behavior that is slightly below standard are fewer and fewer. So that's the effect that we want. And so let's dive into some tools that are going to help everybody do that. Okay, so when it comes to feedback, which is the normal tool that we use to address substandard performance, to give feedback. And we can also use it to address positive performance. I'll show you ways to do that. Feedback comes in positive or negative, and it could be actionable or not actionable. And so this gives us 4 kinds of feedback. If it's positive and it's not actionable, then that's what you might call flattery. Joe, you're awesome. Jim, that was a great job. Jane, that was fantastic. It's nice. It's positive. People like that kind of stuff, but you can't do anything with it. You don't know exactly what was awesome or terrific or fabulous with the behavior. You just got general praise. So you don't know what exact behavior to repeat. Now, if it's negative and non-actionable, so it's on the lower left, um, that was the worst thing I've ever seen. That performance was horrible. What could you possibly be thinking? Um, that kind of feedback is insult. And too often, uh, conversations that where people are addressing subpar performance can wind up drifting into insult, and that's part of the reason why they can create resistance and all sorts of counterproductive behavior. Now, if it's actionable and negative, that's what you might call constructive criticism. So an example would be on slide 6, the message was unclear. So we seem to be creating some mixed messages on slide 6, whether we want the person um, to do action A or action B. So what was the call to action? It was unclear, and therefore our prospects or the people that we were briefing didn't take the steps that we wanted them to take. So let's strengthen the call to action. Would be an example of constructive criticism. So it's negative, um, it's actionable. People know exactly what behavior they need to fix or what action they need to address. Now, of course, if it's positive and actionable, that's what you might call positive reinforcement. And positive reinforcement is actually your most powerful behavior shaping tool because in this case, people know exactly what they did right. You acknowledged it and you appreciated it. Uh, when you address that customer's complaint, you looked her straight in the eye. You gave her your full attention. You heard what she had to say. You repeated it back to her. So it made her feel like she was heard. And then you took action to address the complaint. That's exactly what we want. So that's an example of positive reinforcement. So that employee knows now what behaviors to repeat, to give somebody their full attention, to make sure that they know that they've been heard, and then to address the complaint to their satisfaction. Now, one of the challenges that leaders have is we will use what's called the feedback sandwich, and the feedback sandwich can create all sorts of awkwardness because the feedback sandwich tends to sound like this. Erica, that was a super presentation. Um, Now this went wrong. This went wrong. You need to fix this, and you need to address that. But overall, that was awesome. So what happens in the feedback sandwich is you are going like this. You're on this diagonal where you start off with flattery. Erica, that presentation was awesome. Then you lower the boom and say you need to fix this, that, and the other thing, and then you come back with more flattery. But that was fabulous. Now, as leaders, we tend to do that to make ourselves feel better. Like I started off positive, let her know that she did a great job, and then like told her things to fix, um, and ended on a positive note. So we feel better about that as leaders. Now, on the receiving end, they're hearing a very different message. They hear, well, Chris just, blew sunshine at me with the flattery, and he told me how he really felt with all of this criticism, and and then came back with more flattery. So our employee thinks that the flattery was disingenuous, that the real message was in the criticism. And now they believe that, oh, the leader hates me, thinks I did a horrible job. And this is part of what makes feedback so awkward. So, a solution for this is, instead of looking at constructive criticism, where you're just simply telling people what they did wrong, um, just because they know what they did wrong doesn't necessarily mean they know what to do right. Because if they knew what to do right already, they probably wouldn't have done it wrong in the first place. So, um, instead of constructive criticism, what I encourage people to use is supportive criticism. And it's a very simple three-step process. Step one is you're going to identify the behavior that was substandard. So, uh, Jim, I noticed that you didn't give that customer your full attention when she was making a complaint. You're going to identify the impact. The impact of that is she didn't feel like she was heard, and that we as a company don't care about her and about her as a customer. And the risk is that we're going to lose that customer. Um, Third step is absolutely vital, and this is how you're going to support. So you're going to tell them exactly what to do better next time, and how are you going to help them out. So a lot of times these customer complaints can be very awkward. The situations can be very awkward, and so what we've developed is a three-step process for making sure that somebody feels like they've been heard, and that we deal with their complaints. So um, I'm going to give you that training. We're going to rehearse this a few times, and then we're going to get you back in to deal with customer complaints. So how does that sound? Um, that's an example of, here's how I'm going to help you do it better next time. And so that's the support in supportive criticism, is that you are going to take action to help them be successful. And it's always a good idea to say, I know you can do this well. We hired you because we know that you can do this well. We just got to give you the right tools. And so these are the tools. Let's practice them and get you back in action. Okay, so supportive criticism is going to help you remove the awkwardness out of these accountability conversations. So when we go back to making accountability feel like support, addressing subpar performance is that simple three-step process. One, identify the behavior. Always go on observed or reported behavior, and not on your rumors or your assumptions about their intentions. We don't know somebody's intentions. We just know their behavior. So we're going to identify the behavior. We're going to talk about the impact of that behavior, so people know the consequences. People know the why it's important. And then number three is your support. This is how you're going to support them doing it better next time. It could be more training. It could be tools. It could be rehearsing with them these particular situations, etc. Now, on the other thing that we have to address is the light green area. So what do we do to acknowledge and appreciate performance that is too standard or somewhat above standard. And it's the same three-step process with a little twist. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to identify the behavior. That was awesome. Susan, I saw how you dealt with that customer complaint. You gave that customer your full attention. You made sure that she knew that she was heard, that her voice was heard, her complaints were heard because you repeated them back to her, and until she said, yes, that's exactly right. And then you took swift action. We give every employee $500 to deal with any customer complaint, as well as other tools, and you addressed her complaint right away using the tools that we gave you. That was fantastic. The impact of that is that she went from a potential critic and somebody who might with her feet to our competitors to somebody who is not only an enthusiastic customer but an ambassador. I was at a presentation about a year ago, and it was somebody from Quick Trip, and the Quick Trip guy told about one of the store managers who Quick Trip they sell fresh milk. It's fresh Quick Trip milk, and one of the customers came in with a jug of milk and said, "I bought this milk at your gas station, and it is sour, and I am really upset about this, and I want a refund." And so the store manager uh, took the jug of soured milk, gave her for free another gallon or two of milk, and said, "I'm very sorry that you had this experience. This is not the standard at a Quick Trip store, and I want you to have this replacement milk." Well, it turns out that the person had bought the soured milk at not a Quick Trip place, but somewhere else. She mistakenly thought it was a Quick Trip one. And instead of the store manager focusing on being right, the store manager focused on serving the customer. And so a few days later, she realized her mistake and came back and told the store manager how much she appreciated what he did for her and acknowledged her mistake. And so, now of course she's an ambassador for Quick Trip, and that kind of story. You got people like me who are now sort of and telling those stories and becoming an ambassador of Quick Trip. So three is impact, or two is impact, and three is you're just going to say, "Hey, I appreciate that. This is exactly how we want people to deal with customer complaints. I appreciate what you did, and I want you to repeat it." Now, that approach to acknowledging standard and above standard behavior doesn't cost you a thing, except maybe about 30 seconds. And what it does is it shows people that you are acknowledging good performance, that you're appreciating it, and they're going to repeat the behavior, and so is everybody else around them, which is why positive reinforcement is your most powerful behavior shaping tool. Okay. Finally, the last thing I want to discuss, the last tool I want to provide to you is feeding forward. So if feedback looks at past performance, feed forward focuses on future performance. And feed forward has been a game changer for organizations that have employed it. And so feed forward is a simple four-step process. Step one, and this is great for 90-day reviews. This is particularly great for after a particular event or action. You want to capture the lessons and improve performance next time. Feed forward is ideal for this. It's ideal for your 90-day updates. So the first question you ask is, what's going well? What went well that you want to sustain? And you do this from the asking the employees these questions. So oftentimes in feedback sessions, it's the leader rapid firing on the employee. In this situation, what we want to do is get the employee talking, because the more that they say things, the more they own them. And so the first step is, what's going well that you want to sustain? Normally, 90 to 95% of the stuff that people are doing, pretty good. And so let's celebrate that. So what's going well that you want to sustain? And list those things and acknowledge them, celebrate them. Second question is, um, what did you do better than last time? So how did you improve over last time? So what this does is it shows the employee that you are acknowledging and you're giving them the opportunity to say, this is what I did better. And so there'll be a couple of things that that they did better than last time. And again, you want to celebrate that. Number 3 is, what do you want to do better next time? So better next time. What is it that you want to do better next time? So notice it's not, here's what you screwed up. It's, what do you want to do better next time? And so they're going to acknowledge the things that they want to improve on. And so, again, you're not beating them up over something that they didn't do right the last time. You're just saying, what do you want to do better next time? And their response becomes very interesting. So if they're very self-aware and they are able to look at themselves as honestly, they're going to come up with stuff that they want to do better. And you may have noticed things that they don't notice. And so you can chime in on these because you're helping them address blind spots. And so this is a very healthy conversation. And because it's focused on next time, it's focused on the future, it removes all the defensiveness because people can't get defensive about something that hasn't happened yet. So what do you want to do better next time? Make that a conversation. And if somebody can identify something they want to do better next time, then that also tells you a lot about their degree of self-awareness. And that's something that you can work with them on. Now, number 4 is also absolutely vital. And that is, what does ideal support from me look like? And I encourage you to use those exact words. What does ideal support from me look like? Because it's one of those open-ended questions that is going to elicit a thoughtful response. Oftentimes leaders will say, what do you need from me? And because your employee just wants to like end the conversation and get back to what they were doing, they will often say, oh, nothing, I'm good. And so you never get to address those. You never really get to set them up to be successful. So when you say, what does ideal support for me look like? What specifically does setting you up to be successful look like? They're going to give you a considered response. And then, of course, that is one of the ways that you show empowering caring is by following through on helping and setting them up to be successful. So that's feed forward, and the people who've used it find it to be a game changer because it removes all the awkwardness out of your conversations and actually improves future performance instead of people getting defensive and trying to justify their past actions. Okay. All right. So those are the tools for accountability. And once I stop the recording, we'll be able to do some question and answer session to get at your questions. So this is what we covered today was relentless improvement. That's what accountability does. Next week or next month, excuse me, next month, we are going to, the masterclass is going to be on upstream thinking. So we often in the military used to talk about getting left of the boom. So how do you get ahead of the explosion? How do you get ahead of the attack so that you have a an advantage? And in business, it's how do I get ahead of the event? How do I do fire prevention rather than simply firefighting? And so upstream thinking is going to give you the strategies to be able to do fire prevention instead of firefighting. And I will post in the chat, stand by, post in the chat the registration for next time. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.